Now, on Friday, this was the last example that we did. There were 2 questions that I told you had to ask yourself. Actually, no, that wasn't it.
That was.
Yeah. Above or below, right?
Yeah.
Solid or dotted, we talked about these. 29, I gave you the equation. This one I did not. We came up with the equation of x equals -3, and then we replaced it. This one right here, we have to come up with the equation. So how do I come up with the equation of a line? What is the equation of a line? Y equals mx plus b is the correct answer there.
4.
So if that's y equals mx plus b, what I need to do is I need to find m and I need to find b. So how do I go about finding which one and which one do I find first?
Where is
Rise over run is the graphical definition of slope. But what do I want to find first?
the y-intercept?
Why is the y-intercept easier to find than the slope?
Because it's where the line crosses the y-axis.
It's where the line crosses the y-axis, which means I can easily say that it crosses the y-axis right there at that point. And what are the coordinates of that point?
0,
Keeping in
4.
mind, looking at the scale of the axes,
0, 4.
0, 4 is going to be your y-intercept, which would imply what about b?
4.
That b is 4. Now I need to find my slope, which is going to be rise over run. And in order for me to do that, I need to find yet another what? Point. Well, I'm going to find now the x-intercept because it crosses in a nice little place there too. And I'm going to start from which point? The bottom or the top? Dude, are you on vacation? You, get out paper and write this. Welcome to Algebra 2. Do I start from the bottom point or the top point?
Top.
Rise over run. If you're already at the top, where are you going to rise to?
Down.
You're not going to rise anyplace, are you? So you're going to start at the bottom point, and you're going to rise up 1, 2, 3, 4 units. And then I'm going to run to the left 1, 2 units. If I'm going to the left, am I positive or negative?
2.
Negative to give me. Negative 2 is m. Do we understand that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So now I found m and I found b. So I have y is equal to mx plus b. So that means y is equal to -2x plus 4. That's my equation. But I need to turn my equation into a what? Equality, which means I have those 2 special questions I have to ask. What's the first question? Is the line solid or dotted?
Solid.
It is solid, so therefore I'm using less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. Is the shading above it or below it?
Above it.
Why is it above it? Because here's a point. Go vertical. Here's a point. Go vertical. It's above it. So since it's above it, I'm going to choose the lovely greater than or equal to symbol to give me the equation or the inequality. Y is greater than or equal to -2x plus 4. Yes or no? Okay, now what am I giving you? What are the graphs that look like these? What do they have in them? Absolute values. Now the equation of an absolute value is going to be y is equal to a times the absolute value of x minus h plus k. Agreed?
What?
Now, h and k is known as what, according to the absolute value equation? The point. The vertex. Don't tell me just the point. I need you to speak mathematically to me. So if hk is my vertex, what is a vertex? A vertex is the minimum or the maximum point where it changes direction. This is the graph. You understand that?
Yes.
Now at this point I want to ask you, do I have a minimum value or a maximum value with this lovely little graph?
Minimum.
I'm going to have a minimum value, which means if I have a minimum, what does that mean about A? Chicago Friday, y'all.
Oh, slope.
A is your slope, that is correct. But when A is positive, then that means you're going to have a minimum, and when A is negative, that's when you're going to have a maximum, meaning a valley or a point, or a mountain, I mean. If I have a V, that means I have my valley and I have a minimum. A is positive. If A is negative, that means I have flipped it over and I now have a mountain. Do we understand that? So, with that said, now I need to find my other point. Why do I need another point on there? Because what am I going to use? Rise over run. So another point puts me right here. And how many units is there for my rise? 1 unit. And how many units for my run? 1 unit. Now, is A positive or negative? It's going to be positive because I have a V, not a mountain. So I have A, H, and K, so what's my equation? Y is equal to A, which is positive 1. I didn't mean to do that. Is 1 absolute value of X minus, what is H? Well, what's this point? What is that point? What's the ordered pair? That point is -1, -1. So now what is H? -1. What is K? -1. So what is negative minus a negative? Positive. So I have Y is equal to the absolute value of X plus 1 minus 1. There's my equation. Now my question to you is, what's the inequality? Is it solid or dotted?
Dotted.
Dotted, which means it's strictly greater or strictly less than. Now, which one is it going to be?
Greater.
Is the shading above it or below it?
Above.
It's above it, so therefore I'm going to have Y is greater than X plus 1 minus 1.
Obviously, the 1 out to the absolute value.
What's 1 times anything?
Same thing.
So does that 1 matter? So at this time, I'm going to pass out your guys' homework.
Remember the Strawberry went at the digging and he hit him in the nose?
Yeah.
With that, I may have broken his nose.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Dude, I'm gonna hit him right. Everyone. Funny. Jacob was like,
No, keep quiet.
What's today's date?
Today's the 10th. So what we're going to start with is looking at problems 1 through 6. Problems 1 through 6 are all going to look like lines. What I want you to understand is if I'm giving you this slope pick, this means that I have a positive, negative, 0, and an undefined slope. All lines that end up on the mountain have X and Y in them. All lines that end up on a slope of 0 is Y equals a number, and all lines that have a slope of undefined is X equals a number. Do we all understand that, yes or no?
should we write that down?
Keep that up.
Do you know it? And I'd probably write it down.
Y equals a number.
So now, we're going to work on problem number 6 together. And if we're doing this, what do I want you to do for problems 1 through 6? What's it say to do up there?
So for Y.
Solve for Y, find the slope, y-intercept,
Solid dotted.
solid or dotted, and then what?
Upper below.
Above or below. Those are the steps you need to find, you need to do for all those problems 1 through 6. All the problems 1 through 6 are going to be straight lines, because all lines are straight. Okay? So now, number 6, I need to solve this thing for what? I need to solve for Y, so if I'm solving for Y, what do I need to get rid of? I need to subtract 4x from both sides. So I have 2y is less than or equal to negative 4x plus 8. Now what? Divide each term by 2. So why do I flip the sign?
Because you divide by,
When do I flip the sign?
Multiply by
When you multiply or divide by negative numbers. So I'm not dividing by negative numbers, so that stays. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2x. 8 divided by 2 is going to be 4. There is going to be your inequality information. Now, out of that information, out of that equation, what information do I need? Whoa, what is it? Negative 2 over 1, which means what exactly?
negative.
Up to left 1. What is my b value or my y-intercept? 4, which gives me the y-intercept being 0, 4. Is it solid or dotted?
Let's find out.
It's solid. Why is it solid? Because it's less than or equal to. Since it's less than or equal to, do I shade above it or below it? Below it. Below it. Now I'm going to take all that information.
We can write all that out.
If I am, shouldn't you?
Oh,
You should. So I'm going to take that information. What am I going to plot first?
Y-intercept.
0, 4, which is my y-intercept. And then from there, what am I going to do? Up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the right or left 1, up 2 to the left 1. I went to the left. Now what if I want to go to the right? Down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1. Is it solid or dotted, folks?
Solid.
It's a solid line. And do I shade above it or below it?
Below.
I'm going to shade below it.
Pretty color.
And there's my inequality. Do we understand that?
Nope.
That's how you do problems 1 through 6. Are we good? Less than means what? If she's 5 inches less than you. Is she taller than you or is she smaller than you? Shorter than you, so therefore it's below, right? So whenever I say below, I mean take any point on that line and shape below it. You see that? That's below that point on that line. That's why that's in the shaded region. See that?
Why can't we give up?
Because it says less than.
How do you find that?
It's in the problem. Make sense? Number 7. What's 7 going to look like? What is 7 going to be in the shape of? A V, because it is an absolute value, correct? So since it's an absolute value, my question is how do I graph this? Well, is this in standard form? Y is equal to A times X minus H plus K.
Yes.
Is it in standard form?
No.
Yes, it is. What is A? A is understood to be 1. What is H? This is minus H, so this is a plus 2, so what did I tell you on Friday? It's the opposite, so that gives you negative 2. What's K? 0. So now what's my vertex? Negative 2, 0. Do we all understand that? Since A is positive, what is this thing going to look like? It's going to have a minimum point, and it's going to be a V. Do we understand that? And what do we know about all absolute value graphs? They're V's, and more importantly, what do we know about a V? These are all symmetrical, right? So if they're symmetrical, all I have to do is graph what here? All I have to do is graph the point negative 2, 0, which is my vertex. And then I need to use my A value. What's my A? 1. So from there I go up 1 and then to the right 1. Up 1 to the right 1, up 1 to the right 1, up 1 to the right 1, up 1 to the right 1. Am I done? What do I do now? Symmetrical means I go from the vertex up 1 to the left 1, to the left 1, to the left 1. And how do I connect these dots?
Not the line.
Why does it need to be a dotted line?
Not stupid.
Because it is strictly a greater than, and do I shade above or below?
Below. Oh, above.
Greater than means I'm going to shade above. Do we understand that?
How do you find the minimum maximum again?
That's your vertex. Vertex is your minimum or your maximum.
A equals.
A equals a positive 1 means your vertex is going to be your minimum because A is positive. If your vertex, if your A was negative, then your vertex would be a max. Okay. Now, number 9. What do we have to do on number 9? You have to actually use the plug and chug of the graphing of the XY table. But before you do that, is this thing in standard form?
Yes.
What's my vertex?
1.
What's added in the middle to represent H? Or subtracted? Anything? So if there's nothing there, what's it understood to be? 0. And then what am I adding at the very end? Negative 3. There's my vertex. So now I'm going to pick values for X that are equal distance from 0 on the positive and the negative side. So what type of number should I choose for X here?
Negative 1.
Not negative 3.
3.
Negative 6 works. Why does negative 6 work but not negative 3?
Could be negative.
Because if I want to cancel out the 6, what number should I use? Numbers that are divisible by... What's my denominator?
6.
6. So if I want to cancel out 6, what type of numbers should I use?
Oh.
Multiples of 6. So what's a multiple of 6? Thank you. So I'm going to use negative 12, negative 6, positive 6, and positive 12. Because we have a B and the B is symmetrical, we're going to use the same numbers on the negative and on the positive side. So if I plug in a 1, 6, then for X a 12, negative, what is 1, 6 of negative 12? In other words, what's negative 12 divided by 6? Negative 2. And what's the absolute value of negative 2? 2. So 2 minus 3 gives you negative 1. 1 6 times negative 6. What's negative 6 divided by 6? Negative 1. What's the absolute value of negative 1? 1. And what's 1 minus 3?
2.
So now, if I tell you that this thing is symmetrical, what's going to be my other two values down there? No, I said they're symmetrical. Okay, let's graph it. I graphed the point 0, negative 3. Then I have the point negative 6, negative 2. Negative 12, negative 1. That's one part of my V. So what's my other ordered pairs? Symmetrical. If this one is negative 6, negative 2, what's 6 over here going to be?
2. Not 6.
6, negative 2. What's going to happen at 12? 12, negative 1. It's symmetrical. Do we understand that? Do I connect it with a solid or a dotted line?
Both.
A solid line. And do I shade above it or below it? Ignore it, he's not there. Above it or below it? Above it. You guys are at la la land. Okay, that's all I'm going to do on the front. The last 3 columns on the front, you have to actually replace the equal sign with an equality symbol. Turn it over. Number 17. Actually, let's do 18. 18. I need to find the equation of this line, so how do I do that? Find my vertex. What's my vertex? It's a scale, people. So this is the point 3, 4. So my vertex is 3, 4. Now what's my slope? Well, here's another point. How many units are there between them?
1, 2.
How many units are in between each line?
Well, there's
1,
2 up.
2, 3, 4. So each line is 2 units, right? So from here I went up 2 units and then over 1. Is my slope positive or negative? Why is it negative? Because it's a mountain. So my slope is negative 2 for A. So my equation is going to be y is equal to A absolute value of x minus h plus k. What is A?
2.
X minus, what's A or h? 3 and k is 4. There's my equation. Now is the line solid or dotted? Is the shading above or below? So what is that going to be? Y is strictly greater than negative 2 times the absolute value of x minus 3 plus 4. Okay, you guys are on your own the rest of the period. It's busy.